Hello there, fellow zombie slayers. My name is Stanley557. Mephistopheles, considered one of Call of Duty Zombies' most difficult and rewarding boss fights ever. During my Infinite Warfare Zombies Retrospective, I briefly touched upon the Mephistopheles boss fight and the subsequent rewards offered to players once they successfully emerged victorious. The reason I never actually completed the boss fight before making the review was simply because I didn't have the time nor the patience to complete it in solo. And I also wanted to get the review out before the release of Cold War. So consider this a bonus video that can go alongside the IW Retrospective, as we can finally review Mephistopheles, one of Call of Duty Zombies' best and worst boss fights. Part 10. Mephistopheles. For those who don't already know, players are able to fight Mephistopheles in the game's boss fight mode, a side mode that allows players to skip the Easter egg questline for each map and simply attempt the egg-specific boss fight. Emerging victorious will reward players with a time that they can use to compete with their friends. Before jumping into the fight, players will arrive in the Afterlife arcade. While there, they're given a budget of 20,000 points, and they can use this allowance to purchase any of the available perks and choose from many of the map's possible weapons. While I wish the budget was a tad higher, the allowance is just enough to purchase the Maulers and or the Kendalls, the map's wonder weapon, and Jug, double tap, speed call, stamina up, and quick revive in solo. Boss fight mode is an excellent way for players to sharpen their skills, and in my opinion, is the only real way to practice the Mephistopheles boss fight, without having to constantly complete the Beast from Beyond Easter egg for even a chance to fight him. But enough stalling, let's talk about the boss fight, shall we? To beat the Mephistopheles boss fight, players have to activate each of the 5 talismans around the arena. Activating a talisman will require players to charge said talisman by standing within its ritual circle for a total of 20 seconds. Mephistopheles will attempt to attack the player to force them off the talisman. In the first phase, Mephistopheles has 4 unique attacks. The first is summoning zombies. This will be indicated by him raising his hands. The second is a Meteor Barrage. This is easily his most dangerous attack due to his quick speed and damage values. A direct hit will cause players to take 2 hit points of damage. So if the player is hit by 2 meteors, they'll have already been brought into a red screen, and he loves to spam this attack, so nimble feet are a must. I seriously can't count how many times I was down by his attack. One slip up and it's all over. The third is the black hole. Laughing maniacally and holding an orb in his hand, Mephistopheles will summon a black hole to pull players into its center, instantly killing them if they hit the center of it. Thankfully, all the player has to do is stand back and go fully prone. The fourth attack is the Breath of Fire. Indicated by a fiery roar, Mephistopheles will fly across a lane in the arena, bursting flames. A direct hit will instantly down you. Leaving a talisman circle will cause its timer to decrease, requiring players to stand on it for additional time. Once the talisman has been charged, souls will begin to float around the arena. Players must now utilize the Ghost and Skull's Entangler weapon to launch souls into Mephistopheles. Once enough have been shot, Mephistopheles will become weak, allowing players to shoot one of the 5 glowing circles on his chest. Once enough damage has been dealt, the first phase will end, and an interim phase will begin. Darkening the sky, Mephistopheles will summon scouts, phantoms, and zombies at the player. And depending on the phase, he will also send out clowns in interim phase 1, the slasher in phase 2, ninja zombies in phase 3, and 2 rhinos in phase 4. The Mauler Sentinel variant makes quick work of nearly all of these foes, and this variant is imperative to completing this fight in solo. Once the interim phase has been complete, Mephistopheles will summon meteors to bombard the player. The player must now have to hide behind one of these 2 pillars on the corners of the arena and simply wait it out. And after all of that work, we've only completed 15% of the boss fight. Now, on to phase 2 through 4, which all play very similarly. During phase 2, Mephistopheles brings with him 3 new attacks. When he raises his hands towards the sky, Mephistopheles will bring a large meteor to crush the player. Much like the Meteor Barrage, players do have to move out of the way of it quickly. Fun fact, the first meteor thrown will almost always land in the middle of the arena rather than tracking the player's movement. It's weird. The next attack is the Wall. When he claps his hands together, a wall will be raised across the middle of the arena, cutting off half the player space, and coming into contact with the wall will damage the player quickly, making it even more dangerous. And finally, there's the Ground Slam. Teleporting into the middle of the arena, Mephistopheles will jump and slam into the ground, killing anything within his reach, except the undead, of course. All players have to do is run around the pillar and wait. Probably the hardest part about completing these 3 phases is consistency. While these attacks are all quite easy to avoid on paper, it's when you put it all together over a long 15-minute boss fight that makes it hard. And as each phase progresses, the time between each attack gets shorter and shorter, further increasing its difficulty. And if you somehow survive the Rhino interim phase, seriously, this is almost impossible in solo without the card mana up, you'll have made it to phase 5. During the 5th phase, we will see the final new attack, Fire Tempest. Circling his hands together, Mephistopheles will summon a fire tornado that will shoot out various flames, and have them head in multiple different directions. In tandem with any other attack, this move is extremely lethal, as it makes maneuverability extremely difficult. But once you've launched the final volley of souls and shot the final symbol on his chest, the 6th and final phase will begin. Easily the fight's hardest, as the boss fight crescendos in difficulty. In the final phase, players will no longer be required to stand on any of the symbols, and must begin to shoot Mephistopheles while avoiding every attack and every enemy thrown the player's way. Unlike the first 80% of the boss fight, every enemy can be spawned in during this phase. This includes phantoms, slashers, and a rhino after a certain period of time. Players have to avoid these constantly spawning threats, as Mephistopheles' attacks become even quicker. Being able to balance all of these variables is key, and sadly you'll just have to simply be content with the fact that the final phase is almost entirely luck-based. If Mephistopheles summons the Fire Tempest, and you have a Slasher or Phantom on the field, you'll have to hope he doesn't fire a Meteor Barrage. If he does, you'll have 4 extremely dangerous variables to keep track of, and this will lead to some very swift, and ultimately unfair deaths. But let's say you get lucky and you're able to damage Mephistopheles enough. Once complete, all 5 talismen will be raised into the air. Interacting with them all despawns everything in the arena, and the talisman will shoot down Mephistopheles. Teleporting to the middle of the arena, in one final gambit, he will attempt to summon a black hole bomb to kill us all. Thankfully, all players have to do is shoot him to death, and victory will be finally achieved.
We got him! Open fire!
Yeesh, what a mess. Oh yeah, during my final recording session, I literally died as activating the last talisman. I wanted to cry. And finally, when you beat him in boss fight mode, you gotta put it all together in the actual director's cut. Thankfully, with the help of the evade card and reanimated, I was able to beat him on the first try thanks to all the practice. This was easily the most stressful experience I've ever completed in Zombies, with the hardest caveat being the 1 second chance solo players get. In co-op, you theoretically have infinite lives as long as someone revives you. In solo, you're only able to slip up once, because you only get 1 quick revive usage. And I can't stress enough how many times I would have beaten this earlier if I just had another chance. Subjectively, I loved nearly every minute of this fight. The skill required was absolutely insane, but as I pushed on, sure, it became exhausting, but I slowly kept pushing my personal best more and more. This is easily the hardest boss fight in Zombies without a doubt, but as I pointed out earlier, each and every single attack has their own animations and sound effects, allowing keen-eyed players and skilled ones to use them to their advantage. And in solo, it's almost required because you simply can't pay attention to Mephistopheles all the time while dealing with the oncoming zombies and threats. And but that final phase, good luck! Mephistopheles' biggest flaw lies in his damage values. Unlike every other boss fight in Zombies, where the enemies will typically introduce new mechanics and allow the zombies to pick off the players, Mephistopheles is just too powerful. In every Treyarch boss fight, the screen nuke, or super attack, is typically reserved for a boss's final phase or final attack. In Voyage of Despair, the Eye of Odin is not able to one-shot the player with its basic Ice Beam attack, instead dealing middling damage and freezing players to allow the horde to pick them off. With the screen nuke only coming during the final phase, it must be prevented 3 times to complete the fight. In 9's boss fight with Fury and Wrath, the only attacks that can one-shot you is the Prima Materia Mind Blast, an attack that is clearly telegraphed and will almost never kill players unless they're simply not paying attention. And finally, look at Horizon Drock's Keeper. While unable to deal lethal damage using its normal attacks, the only one able to instantly kill the player is the Lightning Strike. Unless players are hidden behind a pillar, they will be killed instantly. To prevent this, players must use their Ragnarok to stun the Keeper 3 times to complete the fight. In the Mephistopheles fight, let's go over how many attacks that can one-shot you if they land a direct hit. The Black Hole, the Fiery Roar, the Meteor Drop, the Wall, the Grand Slam, and the Tempest. And that's if you ignore how much damage the Meteor Barrage does, the Rhinos, the Slasher, the Ninja, and the Cryptid Phantoms. Is it all a mess? Absolutely. But all this chaos creates such a unique atmosphere. The music, the sound effects, the setting, the difficulty. It's exactly what Infinite Warfare Zombies should have been throughout its entire development cycle. And it's a shame that this vision was finally captured when they scrapped most of Beast from Beyond as a map. And then there's the patience factor. If I couldn't practice this fight in boss fight mode, then this easily would have been the most time-consuming undertaking ever. But thankfully, time wasn't wasted as I was able to reattempt the fight near instantly. Honestly, without it, I would have given up pretty quickly. But now that I've beaten it, I can say that without a doubt, Mephistopheles is deserving of the title of the best zombies boss fight of all time. Overall, the boss fight is one of the series' most epic, and very well made. And while I wish the game threw solo players a bone or two, I was more than willing to step up to the challenge. And now, I think I reviewed nearly everything Infinite Warfare Zombies has to offer.
Where the hell are we?
Ugh! Why can't we leave this place?
To be continued.
Thank you for watching. Hopefully, I don't have to cover anything else in IW for quite a while. The stress this boss fight put on my body was intense. All in all, it took me about 12 hours of attempting and actually doing the gameplay to beat him in solo without the use of fortune cards or other players. But if you like this, then don't forget to subscribe and become a fellow zombie slayer. But with all that out of the way, thank you for watching, and remember, keep on slaying.
What the fuck?